everyone, Christina here. Welcome to day 10 of the holiday card series for 2015. Today I'm going to be using the Snowflakes stamp set and the Elves stamp set from Leah Griffith and Hero Arts. I just happen to have both of these stamp sets in the same storage pocket. I do that for smaller stamp sets sometimes. And when I saw them together, I thought they were so cute and I wanted to use them together on the same card. So I'm going to create a design where I have the two elves in the center of this cardstock here. This cardstock is cut to, it's currently 4 1/4 by 4 1/4, but I will eventually kind of trim it down a little bit. And this is just some Neenah Solar White cardstock. This is the 80-pound version, so nothing too thick. I am going to be mounting it on the card base later, so I wasn't concerned about the thickness at this point. I'm going to be doing all my stamping in Versamark ink and then embossing in white embossing powder. And because after you stamp Versamark, you can't really see it when you stamp on white, I'm going to go ahead and do this in phases. So I am first stamping the two elves with jingle bells right underneath and then a little snowflake off to the side. And then after I have applied all of the embossing powder on that portion, I'll go ahead and start stamping more of the pattern coming around that bottom of what I've already stamped. So basically what I'm doing is I am having all the elements stamped on both sides of the card. So I have snowflakes on both sides of Jingle Bells, and then right in the center I have this little tiny mushroom, which I think is so cute. It's kind of that whimsical gnome kind of holiday Christmas scene. So I've got a little mushroom in the middle, and then spanning out on either side, it's always the same stamp on both sides. So I've got a heart on both sides, a snowflake on both sides, leaves on both sides. And then after I had all of that stamped, I made sure it was coated in embossing powder and then heat set that with my heat tool until it was all melted. I'm going to do some ink blending, so I'm going to use my Molotow masking pen in a different way. In the past, I've used it on watercolor paper when I'm adding watercolor on top, but Jennifer McGuire tried this and it totally worked, and I was ecstatic to try it here. I'm going to be using this masking fluid on regular Neenah Solar White cardstock, do some blending over the top, and then I'll be able to rub it off later. It's super fast and easy, and if you're going to be doing some ink blending where you don't need kind of layers and layers of masking, if you're only going to be doing one simple layer of masking fluid and then you're done, I think it's worth it to go ahead and just do it like this with some masking fluid. I can't vouch if this is going to work the same with regular traditional masking fluid or liquid frisket. I think those mediums might be a little bit too wet and it would harm the paper, but this Molotow masking fluid is actually formulated to be used on paper. It was kind of a supply that kind of came to the crafting industry late. This masking fluid pen has been around for a long time, and graphic artists and illustrators have been using it on regular paper for a long time. So using it like this is actually the traditional way that it would be used. So I think that's just kind of interesting. So I used my ink blending tool and I blended in some evergreen bough and then also some pine needles, just coming in from those edges. And then now I'm going to use my Xyron adhesive eraser to pull off this masking fluid. At first I was being really dainty and pulling it off with this adhesive eraser, being really careful not to tear the paper. And then I realized I could just use my fingertips. So I started to use my fingers and just rubbed off that masking fluid. It does tend to come off in little tiny bits like you're erasing a pencil, but it worked great. So to color in these elves, because I'm using just regular cardstock, I knew I wouldn't be able to use like watercolor mediums for it because it wouldn't be able to handle all of the water. And I also knew that I couldn't use my Copic markers because white embossing powder or any colored embossing powder in particular can damage the brush tips on your Copics. Like it eats away at the embossing powder and it ruins your tips. So I knew I didn't want to do that. So then I thought I would try a Dove blender pen with some distress ink. So what I'm doing is smushing my ink pad on a craft sheet or any slick surface. So I have a little pool of ink. I'm picking it up with my Dove blender pen, and then I'm applying the color onto my project here. Now I started by coloring in their faces, and later I'll do something a little bit different, and you'll see that in a minute here. But for the rest of their outfits with the scarves and the bottom portion and then their hats, I went ahead and just used Festive Berries. So you're going to see how pretty that is, how it just starts to blend out. You're basically picking up that pigment with the marker, and as you color, the pigment runs out. And so you're only going to get that clear fluid that's in the marker. It's super fun to color like this, and you get some really fun, soft effects with it. The one thing you do have to remember is that your brush strokes will show, like you saw those horizontal brush strokes right there in the center of that elf on the left. So you want to make sure that you're kind of coloring in the direction that you want your strokes to be. So for the rest of this, I'll be trying to color more in up and down strokes so that that's all that's shown. It looks a little bit more even. So I did do a little blending across the top going horizontally, but that was just to get the color across the top. And then I'll go ahead and start adding the color to their hats, and then I'll add some to their scarves as well. So this blending pen, this Dove Blender pen, this is one of my favorite blender pens, but there are some other options. This doesn't really behave like the Copic blender, like the colorless blender. I haven't tried that particularly with my distress inks. I don't know that I would. I think it might ruin them. I have no idea. I haven't tried it. But there are some other blender pens that work in a similar fashion. I know there's one from Tombow, and there's also one from Stampin' Up. There's quite a few blender pens out there. If they're meant to pick up pigment and then color on your project, it's the same type of blender pen. It's basically a marker with clear ink inside of it. So it's really kind of a fun concept. So after I had the elves all colored in, I tried to fix their eyes. I wanted their eyes to be black and totally messed it up. It was really gross looking. And so I decided I would go ahead and stamp these in black archival jet black ink and then just color them, and I'll trim them out and put them over the top. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm taking some of that Tattered Rose Distress ink and blending it from the sides. And then since I'm kind of coloring this for the second time, I decided I wanted to add a little bit of a blush cheek on them. So I'm using some worn lipstick. So I'm just going to bring in a little bit of that red. And you see how it's kind of a harsh line. And then I still have a little bit of time to blend that out and soften those edges, which is kind of nice. The other thing I wanted to mention when you're using this blender pen is that you can't go over the same area multiple times over and over again, because you're adding more moisture to the paper, and this paper isn't watercolor paper. It's not meant to hold that much moisture. So if you do need to go over areas twice, like to maybe add more intense color or something like that, go ahead and let it dry first and then go back in. So I trimmed these out really carefully, taking all the black edges off, and then glued them down over the faces, and it turned out just fine. As far as the card base goes, it is 4 3/4 by 4 3/4, and the finished stamped and blended piece ended up being a little bit smaller than 4 inches by 4 inches, so it goes on there really nicely with a white edge or white border around the edges. I took my Wink of Stella clear glitter brush pen and added a ton of glitter. My Wink of Stella pen right now is really kind of juicy. It's a brand new pen, so it's putting out quite a bit more shimmer than usual. It'll probably calm down in the next few days or the next few cards that I make. Then I put some glossy accents on the scarves and also on those bells on the tops of their hats. That's when I noticed that that yellow had kind of creeped out from the edge, and I used my white gel pen to kind of cover up that area. So that is the finished card for today. I hope you guys enjoyed. I really love this ink blended look coming up from the bottom. I think it's a fun look. Hope you guys are getting some inspiration from the holiday card series, and I'll be back on Monday for day 11. Okay, so you guys know the drill. If you've been watching my holiday card series so far, you know that at the very end of every video, I include the 6 previous years of the holiday card series. So if you would like to see more cards from previous years, go ahead and click on those on screen right now. You can visit my blog at kwernerdesign.com, and you can subscribe to my YouTube channel by clicking subscribe in the top corner. And I invite you to do that. It's super fun. You get notified when I upload a video. Thanks for watching today, and I will see you on Monday for a new video.